Hello and welcome back to Lost in Translation. My name is Nico. This week we are taking a look at the Torah portion of Vayeshev and the 10 things you will miss if you're only reading the portion in English. All right, so we'll start off with number 1. Toldot, there's that word again. So let's take a look here at our friendly Chabad website, where we can see right at the very beginning, now that we know that Jacob dwelled in the land of his father's sojourns, in the land of Canaan, Ele Toldot Yaakov, right? These are the chronicles or the generations. We're getting further details about it. Now that we have Yaakov Avinu established in the land, he's come to the place of his father. Now we get the details of what's going on with him. And the very first word that we get is Yosef. So we really know that the detailed information about Yaakov, the whole reason that we had this whole generation is that we could, yes, we have the 12 tribes established here. We have the 12 brothers, but really Joseph HaTzadik, we're going to understand soon why he is the one biblical character that's referenced as the righteous, right? We're going to find out that as we go along. But he's the one. So this word Toldot is coming again to bring further detail about Yaakov Avinu, and really, we want to really understand how his son, his 11th son, Yosef, comes into this story. Okay, number 2. Love and hate. Almost right away, we understand that Israel, also Yaakov Avinu, Israel loved et Yosef, right? And that funny word et again. Out of all of his sons, more than all of his sons, Mikol Ba'anav, okay? And so his brothers saw this, so they hated him. And the more that Yosef seemed to show himself as apart from them, the more they hated him, right? So there's this juxtaposition again between love and hate. So what's happening here? They're all supposed to be righteous. There's none of the 12 sons of Yaakov are supposed to be evil. We've purified the evil out of the family by the time Esau has gone off to a separate land with all that he owned to become a different kingdom, right? So there's still something going on in here. There's still a further purification. There's something else that has to happen, and there's something else that only Yosef HaTzadik, only Joseph can do it. And that's something that puts him at odds, or it puts his quality at odds with the rest of the qualities of Israel. Number 3. Dreams. Okay. Joseph starts having dreams about sheaves, bowing to him, and stars and moons, and the sun bowing to him. And he's telling these dreams to his brothers, and they're getting even, they're despising him even more. They're hating him even more. Like, oh, you're like the youngest, almost the youngest one of us, and we're going to come bow to you. The kind of this resentment they might imagine between older brothers and a younger brother who is more loved, right? But what's interesting here is in the second dream, Behold, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were prostrating themselves to me. They were all bowing down to me, right? And okay, um, his father hears this, and well, will we come, I, your mother, and your brothers, to prostrate ourselves to the ground? Now, we need to remember that Rachel, Joseph's mother, is no longer alive. So, in fact, the Torah reminds us of exactly that. When Yaakov Avinu says, "Loma hachalum hazeh asher chalamta habo navo ani ve'imecha." Okay, well, right here, asher chalamta. Right here, instead, we can read Rachel met. So the Torah is reminding us right there that Rachel, the mother of Joseph, is no longer alive. It's right there. It's written in front of us. It's just these between the two words of Asher and Chalamta. But it's there for us to see and to remember. All right. And number 4. Bumbling in a field. Okay, so there's a day that all the brothers go out to tend the sheep, and Yaakov Avinu sends Yosef, his 11th son, to go and check on the boys. You know, Yosef, he had this habit of giving bad reports about the boys. Sometimes I guess they would misbehave or something. Who knows exactly what was going on? So he went out to look for them, and as he was looking, a man, and a man found him, and behold, he was straying in a field, or he was bumbling in a field. Vayemsehu ish vehine to'eh basadeh. Now we've seen this sadeh a lot, right? So we know that originally Esau was a man of the field, right? And we know that Yaakov Avinu was a man of the tents, and he became a man of the field, and he became, and his sons were out in the fields, and they were out in the fields all the time. And so there's this connection with the field and the place, and the man found him in the field, and he asks him, what are you looking for? He says, I'm looking for my brothers. And he's told that they've gone on from here. They've gone on to Dotan, right? And so his brothers weren't in the place that they were supposed to be, right? They were separated from him. There's this symbology of him going to meet his brothers, and where they were expected to be, there was no one, and he was all alone. Well, when we're all alone, we can't have a community. We can't have minyan. We can't pray certain prayers. We're even incapable of performing all the mitzvot all alone. We need the community to perform all of the mitzvot together. Men perform some, women perform others, priests perform others, Levi perform others. We need all of us together to be able to perform the entire Torah, and by himself, Yosef was unable to do it, right? So he had to find his brothers, and that's what gets us to the next problem. So number 5, he was sold to Ishmaelites. So Yosef finds his brothers, and remember, they hate him. And if they hate him, there's separation. They're not together. They want to kill him. They want to get rid of him. There's some sort of quality to Yosef that they cannot agree to. Okay? And it's decided that instead of killing him, hey, let's just throw him into a pit, and And then they decide, hey, it might be a good idea to sell him. We could get some money out of this, right? So what happens is they see some Ishmaelites and they decide to sell him. And then what we see here also is that, there are Midianite men who pass by and they pulled Joseph out of the pit and they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites. So who did the selling here? Well, let's just take a quick look at the art scroll. Yeah, let's not kill him. Let's sell him. Joseph strip his tunic. Okay. A caravan of Ishmaelites are coming from Gilead. And Midianite men, traders, passed by. They drew Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites. So here, in both of these translations and in the original text, it's not clear that the brothers are the ones who are selling him, right? It's these Anashim Midianim who come by and Vaya'alu et Yosef min Habor, the pit, V'imkuchu et Yosef li'ishmeleim. Okay? And they get money, kasef. And yeah, so maybe it wasn't the brothers. It doesn't seem that it was the brothers who sold him at all, but it is interesting that he's sold to Ishmaelites, who, if we remember, their mother, the mother Ishmael, was an Egyptian. And their father, Ishmael, married an Egyptian woman. So they are mostly Egyptian. They even live near Egypt, right? Because that's where Ishmael went to. He dwelled near Egypt. And so now these are the perfect people to be taking Joseph down into Egypt, right? Or even family in a way, right? So there's a connection and there's a flow in the theme that these are the people, these are the desires connected to Egypt that bring him down into Mitzrayim. Okay, number 6. Judah and Tamar. Now there is this interesting interlude in the story of Joseph with Judah, who marries and has 2 sons. Both of them the first one, is married to a woman named Tamar, right? And dies because he's there's a sin involved with he cannot he has no desire to be a father, I guess, and the Lord Hashem put him to death, right? So Onan, this is when we learn about levirate marriage, that the brother should take the wife of a dead brother who doesn't have children and have children in his name. Well, that doesn't happen because Onan is not interested in having children either. And so the Lord, Hashem, put him to death also. So what happens in this story is that there's a 3rd son, and Judah doesn't want to marry him to Tamar because he's afraid that his 3rd son, Shua, will die too. And so Tamar is being kind of put off from her rights, and she tricks Judah into copulating with her. She conceives by Judah. She dresses as a prostitute and takes evidence that it was Judah that was the father, his staff and signet ring and his cloak. And Judah doesn't know that it's his daughter-in-law because she's, I guess, in the time, prostitutes, harlots would cover their faces. And in the end, right before they're about to burn her for this sin, she produces this evidence that Judah is the father, and Judah admits, yes, this was me, and she was righteous in her act. And what's interesting here is that this coupling, this pairing, becomes the initial seed of the Israeli monarchy, the House of David, and eventually the Meshiach King. Okay, number 7. Peretz and Zerah, another pair of twins. Okay, so Tamar is pregnant, and she's pregnant with twins. And this calls back to the previous set of twins, Yaakov Avinu and Esav, right? And it's interesting here that that again there was some sort of struggle in the womb between these two twins. The first infant stretched out his hand, so the midwife took a crimson thread. Crimson is very close to red, Edom, conceptually tying back to Esau, saying this one came out first. And it came about as he was drawing back his hand, behold, his brother emerged, and she said, with what strength have you strengthened yourself? Okay, so and Judah named his name Peretz, right? Ma Paratzta, and his name was Peretz. Okay, so the letters here have the meaning of the force that he used to overcome his brother, the one that maybe was tied back to Esau, right? And just like Israel, he struggled, he used force to overcome the angel. He struggled against Hashem. There's this connection between Yaakov and Peretz through the strength and this crimson string, and Edom back to Esau and Zerah, excuse me, and right, and so also there is a connection back to a Kabbalistic concept that Zerah, it means brightness, like the sun. It's constantly bright, and Peretz can also mean like breaching. It has this idea of intermittency. So he's kind of connected back to the moon, and so we learned that the light of Hamashiach is similar to that of the moon. That the light of the house of David is also similar to that of the moon. That it shines in its fullness, and then it wanes, and now it's completely invisible, right? But it will come back in its fullness again, right? When the Mashiach comes back, the light will be full again. So there is this connection there again between these two children and the concept of Mashiach. Okay, number 8. Kahayom hazeh. Okay, so immediately after this interlude, this messianic interlude to Judah and Tamar, we go back to the story of Yosef, who is a slave in the house of Potiphar. He's a nobleman, one of Pharaoh's chamberlains, the chief slaughterer. and the chief butcher, and everything is going great for Yosef. Eventually, he becomes the master of Potiphar's house, like the steward of his house. He's in charge of everything. Potiphar doesn't think about anything that he's supposed to do except for the bread that he means to eat. There's only one catch. Potiphar's wife keeps on trying to seduce Yosef, right? And so again, we have this Egyptian female, Egyptian woman trying to introduce herself back into the house of Israel, right? And she's being rejected, right? Yosef Atzadik, this is one of the characteristics of his righteousness. He's rejecting her. He doesn't want anything to do with her, right? And eventually it comes about, here he said, and it came about a certain day, right? Okay, there was a day like this. But what day like this do we mean? It's kind of a strange translation to say a certain day. We come to understand that this was a special day. There was some sort of opportune day in this Kayom Hazeh, right? That perhaps everybody was out of the house, and we learned that perhaps there was a festival where everybody else went to the temples, and Yosef Atzadik, he was left at home alone with Potiphar's wife, who tries to seduce him again, and he runs away from her, but this time she has a hold of his garment. He ran off naked, and now things are going to turn out a little bit poorly for Yosef Atzadik. Number 9. Ish ivri letzachek. Okay, so this is when the false accusations happen. She has his garment. She says that that Yosef tried to take advantage of her. She says it to all the men of the house. She says it to her husband, and it's interesting here that we're using this word mock again for letzachek. And if we remember that these 3 letters are just like Yitzchak, okay? So we have this transference of the quality of Yitzchak into Yosef, right? So she's claiming that he's trying to be with her, which isn't true. And so here we have that the Hebrew slave that you brought to us came to mock me or to play with me, there's something more going on than just a simple word of play or mock. There is a connection back to Yitzhak Avinu here, and the rejection of a coupling with the quality of Egypt or Mitzrayim. Okay, and number 10. Whatever you did, Hashem made successful. So there's an injustice, there's a lie, and Yosef Hatzadik is thrown into prison. And he, you're thinking, wait a second, maybe he got off easily. I mean, why didn't Potiphar just kill him? I mean, his brothers, Levi and Simon, massacred a whole city for somebody defiling their sister. But now this man who is faced with a slave who he trusted with his whole house betrays him by trying to take advantage of his wife. He just throws him into prison instead. Well, we know from before that the man Potiphar, this Egyptian, he understood that his house was completely blessed because of Yosef. So maybe he didn't believe his wife completely, but he couldn't say that she was a liar, right? Because that would be a loss of face. And again, he's thrown into prison, but even in the prison, he's made to be the chief prisoner. He's taking care of everything for the warden, and the warden isn't looking after anything, right? And so we know that that everything that he's doing, right? Et kul moma biyado b'ashar Hashem ito v'ashar ku oseh Hashem matliach, excuse me. So there is this quality of success and competence that follows Yosef Hatzadik everywhere he goes. Now that he's been sold into slavery, he's made the chief steward of the house. Now he's been thrown into prison, and he becomes chief among the prisoners. And we'll find out next week how exactly he attains even being the chief or the master of all of Egypt, through his capacity to interpret dreams. So until then, like, subscribe, comment on the video, give me your ideas. Maybe I missed something else. If there's something else that you like about this portion, let me know. And until then, until next week, be well.